passion, drive, persistence, resilience, love. All qualities that shape and define us. Join the Cyber Warrior as he helps shape your path. This is Walk With Me. Passion, drive, persistence, resilience, love. All qualities that shape and define us. Join the Cyber Warrior as he helps shape your path. This is Walk With Me. Welcome back to Walk With Me, a Cyber Warrior Studios production. I'm your host, the Cyber Warrior. Last week, we discussed finding your why when it comes to the decisions you make in life. Why you chase different goals or aspirations. One thing I want to mention that was forgotten on that episode is that your why can change just as your life journey progresses. My friend Chris Cochran of Hacker Valley Media mentioned this recently in a post on LinkedIn. His why changed from, I'm going to prove them all wrong, to, I want to help people. This is definitely one type of change that shows evolution of character and being a positive influence on the community he is a part of. Your why can change from money and freedom to family to a new faith, or maybe your interests have changed. Either way, just because your why changes doesn't mean your journey does, only that you now have a new purpose for achieving your goals. Speaking of goals, that is what today's episode is all about. Merriam-Webster defines a goal as the end towards which effort is directed. Now, before we go about discussing how you can choose your goals in life or make your goals, let me explain a little bit about the goals I have made. Some I have achieved, and others I decided I wasn't really passionate about, and so I replaced them with other goals. Personally, I always wanted to own my own business. That business concept has changed over the years, but the fact is, I have owned several small businesses. I still remember as a kid, growing up, I would tell my parents that I was going to be a business owner and I was going to work for myself. You know, some kids want to be firefighters or policemen or whatever. I wanted to own a business. I wanted to make my mark on the world. So one of the first businesses I owned was a website design business. I started that when I was in high school. Another one was a computer repair business. I started that while I was in college. Neither of these really took off. I realized that though I could operate them for little to nothing since I was doing it out of where I lived, I wasn't the type that could just cold call people or try to be a salesman. It just wasn't who I am. And it still isn't. I'm very bad at making a profit because I hated charging people money for something that, one, I enjoyed doing, and two, took me very little time to do in comparison to what it would take others. Needless to say, my website design business, I shut it down after I graduated high school, and my computer repair business, I shut down when I left for the Army. I tell you this so that you understand that sometimes you can achieve a goal, but it's not what you thought it would be. Even though I had learned these lessons, I still attempted to start another business when I retired from the Army. This was going to be a security consulting firm. You would think I would learn, but nope. This one failed too. But I didn't want to do the hard work of selling and marketing. Like I said, it's not my strong point. So it's okay to fail. It's okay for a business or one of the goals that you have to just not work out. That's not what matters. What matters is whether or not you learn from it. For me, it took 3 times to learn that lesson. 3 times for me to learn that, well, I can't own a business that relies on sales. It's just not who I am. But like I said, I still wanted to do something that would allow me to help others. I still wanted to be able to make an impact on the world. And so I made a new goal. I made a goal to start a successful content creation company. That's what Cyber Warrior Studios is. It's all about creating content to help people. Now, am I successful? No, not yet. but I haven't quit either. You see, I've been creating content for several years now, and I keep building my audience as I go. I know this is going to take time, but it is a goal I have because I feel like it allows me to give back to people. You see, I have a YouTube channel that offers shows like Motivation Monday, Tech Tuesday, and to be honest, probably my favorite show, Security Happy Hour. Yes, I know, it's a mixed batch of shows. It's not a niche focus, but it is how I want to give back. I started this podcast under that same company for that same purpose, to give back. So do I still have hope for it? Most definitely. Now you may be thinking, well, what about personal life? What about your goals in life? And see, that's where my goals would surprise you. At 18 years old, I knew I wanted to have a family. I wanted kids, a wife. I wanted everything. I just didn't realize how much work it was going to be. So, I met my wife. We had kids, and I achieved that goal. And it was at that point things changed for me. You see, I realized that I needed money, and lots of it. Well, when you got the family of the size I have, you need lots of money. So, I turned something that I love into a career move. I loved cybersecurity. I still do. And I put every effort into making that a career. As such, doing what I do now, I get to raise my kids, spend time with my family, and do all the things I ever wanted. So how can this relate to you? Well, when you make goals, you can't always set a timeline. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I didn't set a timeline when I wanted a successful business. I didn't set a timeline trying to get into cybersecurity. I never set a timeline for my goals. I just knew it was something I wanted to do, and I make every effort to go for it. You also have to understand that there are two types of goals. There's long-term goals and short-term goals. And short-term goals can actually be broken down more and more. You see, your short-term goals should always be something that's going to push you towards your long-term goals. Ideally, you should have different lengths for when you would hope to meet your goal. Things happen, doesn't always work out, and sometimes it takes longer, but you should have several time frames for your goals. You always want a goal every day of something you want to accomplish. You should have weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals, and then 3 to 5 year goals. And heck, you can even say 5 to 10 year goals. But I tell you 3 to 5 years and 5 to 10 years because sometimes obstacles come at you and it may take you a little longer to truly get to that end stage of accomplishing that goal. Let's say, for an example, you want to have a career as a doctor. Well, your long-term goal at that point in time would to become a doctor. But then you need short-term goals that will get you there. Well, first you have to get into college. And then you're going to have reports to do. You have to pass your tests. You have to attend classes. These are all goals. You're going to finish year 1, year 2, year 3. Again, all goals. But once you get your bachelor's, now you need a new short-term goal. You need to get into med school. You need to get a residency. You see how all these things all work up to becoming a doctor? One of the best ways you can set some professional goals, and I know, as much as I said, I don't like timelines and I don't necessarily use them, but one of the best ways to do it is the SMART goal system. To be honest, I have to do this for work. I'm horrible at it, even if it is an amazing system when done properly. The premise behind it is to generate specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goals. Let me explain a little bit about that. By specific, I mean well, clear, and unambiguous. So very straight to the point, kind of like how we discussed our whys in the previous episode. Measurable, meaning how you define your progress. This is where your short-term goals come in. Because by accomplishing those short-term goals, you can measure how close you are to meeting this new goal. Achievable. Now, that's a very easy statement to understand because it means it's not impossible to achieve. It's very, very possible. And then you have to be realistic. These goals have to be within reach and relevant to your purpose in life. And the final one, timely. I know, I told you, I don't like timelines. But your SMART goals should have a start date and a target date to complete. I've said this before. Some goals this works for, some it does not. But when it works, it is well worth doing. For me, I think this system works great for career goals, like certifications, trainings, overall improvement of capabilities. However, in life, it may not be so easy. So just because you can't use this particular system doesn't mean your goal won't work out. It just means that there are specific instances where a timeline is necessary and having that target completion date makes sense, than others where it has no place. Let me explain. Say you want to earn a certification or degree in your career field of choice. Well, you know a certification will take training and practice, while a degree is generally going to take about 4 years for a bachelor's. So you would set that up as a SMART goal and utilize your short-term goals for achieving it as how you measure success. For life goals, though, let's say you want to travel the world and see a ton of countries. This is more of an endless goal, something that you can't really put a timeline on. So unless you only want to visit a specific number of countries, or have certain countries that you know you must get to, then you can't really put an end date. But what you can do is you set your short-term goals that are achievable, and you can actually accomplish those relatively quickly. Let's say you need a passport to travel. Okay, then make an appointment and get a passport when you get paid. Let's say you want to visit Iceland or Ireland as your first country. Then you book the travel arrangements. You see how this all adds up? Again, short-term goals leading to long-term goals. With this system, though, which definitely works better for life goals versus career goals, there is no end date necessarily. You just decide to make a goal and do everything you can to make it happen. Here's the thing about goals, though. The only way to succeed in meeting them is continuing to make progress. And the only way to make progress when things look hard or something is stopping you is to know your why. That why, that reason for being and doing things, is going to give you the encouragement to continue your journey. I want you to think about something as we wrap up this episode. If a goal is the end, we think that by reaching it, our journey is over. However, that's not true. Once you reach a goal, you should make another and constantly work to improve. We are only going to make progress in our lives if we continue to be better than we were the day before. We should only compare how we are today to how we were yesterday. You see, your journey is your own, and you are your own worst enemy. So please take with you these final words of wisdom on your journey, as this has been another episode of Walk With Me, a Cyber Warrior Studios production. Rise early if you have no one to work for you, and get straight to work. You lose more than time if you sleep when it dawns. For the early riser, wealth is half won. Havamal, stanza 59.